Selectmen to order. First up is Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have two public hearings. First one is Matthew Carter, map U7, lot 9A, located at 640 Ocean Point Road, East Boothbay, Maine, to construct a 16 by 30 foot gear storage platform with a 12 foot by 20 foot rope house for commercial fishing. This will connect to the existing pier by a 5 foot by 25 foot wooden walkway on the Little River. Jim?
In your information packets, you have all the proper notice and the notice to the butters. There's a letter from the harbor master stated in which he attended the on-site public hearing with planning board Mike Tomaselli, that he has received no objections, oral or written, to the project. Additionally, we have received an email from Eleanor and Peter Yasmentes that they wanted to be read aloud at tonight's meeting, so I will do it if that's okay. As direct abutters of Matthew Carter's property, map U7, lot 9A, we attended the on-site Wharves and Weirs hearing on 12/12/14 and have been totally satisfied with the plans expressed by Matthew Carter for his wharf. The way that he has proceeded on this project has been neat and orderly and certainly is respectful for the environment. As a neighbor, we welcome him and wish him well. The town hasn't received any additional information.
To approve. Second.
Motion's been made in second. Any discussion? Any public comment? There being none, all those in favor? Next up is Dana and Melissa Whitley. Is it Whitley?
I'm going to guess.
Whitley? Map R1, lot 10A, located at 400 Barters Island Road, Boothbay, Maine, to construct a pressure-treated wood 4 foot by 6 foot access platform, a 4 foot by 20 foot access stairs, 6 foot by 25 foot pier, 3 foot by 26 foot ramp, 10 foot by 16 foot float, and a 6 foot by 25 foot timber frame float haul-out on the Back River Road, Lewis Cove. Jim?
Same song and dance. Everything's been applied for, abutter for notifications. I think the planning board's heard both of these already. A letter from the harbor master. And finally, he states that he's received no objections, oral or written, on the project. The town doesn't any further comment.
Motion to approve. Seconded.
Motion's been made in second. Any discussion? Any public comment? There being none, all those in favor? Next is public comment. Not a lot of public. Okay. Move on to the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting of 12/10/2014.
So moved. Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion or corrections? All those in favor?
I wasn't here.
Okay. Douglas opposed because he wasn't here.
I
I'm sorry, abstained.
You can oppose if you want.
I apologize. Next up is the town manager resignation and transition plan.
So in your packets that I delivered by hand on Tuesday to the chairman is a letter to the chairman. I'll read it aloud. Dear Steve, as you're aware, I have been offered an extremely exciting professional opportunity to become the city manager in Rockland, Maine. Last night at the Rockland City Council meeting, the city council voted unanimously to approve my contract, and I accepted. Therefore, it's with mixed emotions that I offer my resignation as the town manager of Boothbay. By contract, I am obligated to notify the selectmen 60 days in advance of my resignation. Please consider this letter my official resignation. Therefore, my last day of employment with the town of Boothbay will be March 13th, 2015, my birthday as well. I will take 2 weeks of vacation during this time. My last official workday will be February 27th, 2015. I've enjoyed my time as the town manager of Boothbay. The work that we have accomplished has been amazing and likely propelled me to larger opportunities. I'm thankful to the Board of Selectmen for providing me with the latitude and resources to be successful. I'm even more thankful to the residents of Boothbay, the region, and our summer visitors for treating me with tremendous grace. I will continue to regard the town of Boothbay very highly as I accept this new opportunity. Signed sincerely, myself.
Should we have an actual motion?
You have to.
To accept the resignation.
So I've also provided you a transition plan, which kind of gets into this level of detail about what I think you should do.
Can we hold off on that just for a second to? I'll entertain a motion to accept the resignation.
I'll make a motion that we accept the resignation of Jim Chaosis as our town manager with regret. With the thanks of the town of Boothbay and its citizens for your 4+ years. Jim, you've done a real good job. You're undertaking a very big challenge up in Rockland. You are up to the task, though. And like I said, it's with regret that we accept the resignation, and thank you.
Thank you.
Motion's been made.
Second.
Any more discussion? I'll wait till after we make the motion to read what we've kind of drafted as a whole, so, all those in favor? So, we've drafted something just because I'm not really good with words and I always forget, so I apologize for reading from a piece of paper, but, we have received the resignation of the town manager, Jim Chaosis. Because of the tremendous respect and admiration we have for Jim, we accept his resignation. This is bittersweet. We hired Jim 4 years ago because he was young, energetic, and genuine. We believe he would excel in our town if given the proper tools and support. Fortunately for the town of Boothbay, he did just that, but unfortunately another town noticed what we saw all along. Jim is a rising star destined for success in the municipal government. We hate to see a manager with his talent leave, but understand why he would. We cannot be disappointed or upset when one chooses to advance their career. We must be grateful for the things Jim has done while here. He has accomplished many things in his 4 years here, far too many to list. The city of Rockland will be another chapter in Jim's career, which we are sure he will succeed at. We wish Jim all the best in his new chapter in his managerial career and are happy to have been part of it. On behalf of the citizens of Boothbay, on behalf of the citizens of the town of Boothbay, thank you.
Thank you.
So now we can.
So now, the transition plan. And I put this together in a memo that is very, very high level. Obviously, we can get into as much detail as the selectmen would like to. And as I said at the bottom of this, this is yours. All the actions you take now are yours. I can provide professional guidance. First one is to accept the resignation. Check mark, we've done that. The second thing is that you should consider appointing somebody interim in the meantime. There are many different things that you could do. I kind of list them really quickly. Essentially, there are range riders, there are firms that do this, there are managers out of work, there are many different ways, but usually the most cost-effective way is to appoint a senior member of staff that can make good governmental decisions. I made a recommendation in there. I obviously do that without any authority, and I recommended that you guys appoint Dan Breyer, the code enforcement officer, in the interim. It's really cost-effective to do so, and Dan is very capable of doing the job. If you were to do so, that also provides us 6 weeks to go over everything there is in the queue and make sure that there is a seamless transition. Next is that if you were going to hire another town manager, there are executive search firms that are out there. I talked with the chairman about obtaining prices from them, and you can see I've gotten prices from Mike Wing and Maine Municipal Association, which are the cheaper of the firms that are out there. There are others, like Rick Dacry, who did the search that hired me in Rockland, Eaton Peabody, Municipal Resources. The only reason why we grabbed the MMA and Mike Wing is because we knew they were going to be the more inexpensive ones. So it's on you. What would you like to do?
Well, I definitely, no offense, but I do not think we need to appoint you as our town manager for the time being. I absolutely would feel comfortable with Dan being the interim town manager for the time being. And if I have to do that in motion form, so be it.
Yeah, effective Jim's last day, because Jim's still technically the town manager. He just takes Dan under his wing and
Correct.
guides him along until the
I
time
do-
comes that he's gone.
I do think that he needs to get more compensation once he assumes that role than what he's getting now.
Agreed.
And that's just kind of standard practice, what that is.
I don't know yet.
Um,
We'd have to talk to Dan. We'd have to
Right.
find him.
But, I mean, Dan, you're agreeable to
How'd you get
assuming
talked
the-
into this?
He's still wondering that. Don't talk about it too long.
I could tell by the look on your face.
Well, I would recommend to the board, since he's gonna do 2 jobs, that you essentially, you have a compensation level for me, bring him up to that. It's still cheap for the town because you're not paying his salary. You'd essentially be paying mine absent his salary.
Seems reasonable.
Now, you don't have to do the math, you know you're gonna get commitment out of him.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, I'm just trying to take it all in, that's all. But no, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. I mean, it's a 2-month, probably 2 or 3 month basis. It won't take effect until after
Jim's last day.
Jim's last day anyway. So, I mean, I think that sounds fair. I mean,
Yeah.
So it's within the framework of the budget, easily.
do you want to make that?
Provided Dan accepts.
Well, that's, honestly, before I put this in official terms of a motion, you are agreeable to this. This is something you are willing and, okay.
Because Dan could handle the day-to-day operations. Tracy's your deputy tax collector treasurer, so she can take care of those duties. So with Dan is the head and her taking care of the other 2 things, then we should be fine.
Now, that would involve him getting check signing authority and all that as well.
In the memo I put in here, we'd spend this, it's the easiest thing, because if you appoint Dan, we spend the next 6 weeks transferring those things over. And so we'd make sure he had check signing authority. I would show him the day-to-day functions that I do. And then Dan and I have a really good rapport. As soon as I start working in Rockland, I'm a phone call away.
So,
Second.
there you go. There's your motion and your second.
So the motion's been made to appoint Dan Breyer as interim town manager effective March
When's his last day?
13th. 13th?
No, it'd actually be March 2nd, Jim.
Yeah, March 2nd's a
I'm
good
sorry,
day.
okay, right.
March 2nd, and to raise his interim salary to my
It's
compensation level.
compensation to the town manager's compensation level. Motion's been made in second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Congratulations.
Or, my condolences, I'm not sure.
So I think
Tentative
I
congratulations.
think next on the importance list is choosing a
Firm?
firm to go out and look for a town manager.
What's the major differences in the 2, Jim? I know Mike was the one that we used when we hired you. You're real familiar with MMA, so give us.
I'm very familiar with both firms. I attempted to try to get ahold of Rick Dackery to get his, because he's already reached out to the town. But when we're just talking about MMA and Mike Wing used to be the personnel director at MMA, so they're very much the same. The experience level there is the same with Dave Barrett as it is with Mike Wing.
The one difference that I saw looking through them was MMA covers everything but advertising, and if we was going to pay to bring a town manager here, which we haven't traditionally in the past. Mike Wing, on the other hand, charges for postage. He charges for office supplies, which is included in MMA's. I'm sure that isn't a lot of money, but,
Right.
and he's $600 more than MMA.
Yeah, my recommendation would be to go with MMA, because they've gotten more competitive on their price, so you might as well give them a shot at it.
And we pay them, conveniently, we have our annual dues in front of us.
That wasn't a plant. that-
No, I know, but, I mean, we pay them, what was it, $5,000, what did I say? $5,500. So why not take advantage of the lower cost, I guess, would be my philosophy.
Yeah, and the 4,900 is all-inclusive, like you said, Steve. And Mike Wings is, that could be $6,000
Right.
or more.
Mostly inclusive. There's a couple of things.
And Maine Municipal breaks it down a little bit more from what I've read, that first they're gonna wanna meet with us to see, to gather what we're looking for in a town manager. They put together a check sheet, if you will, for us. They'll get all the applications, they'll cull through them and recommend whatever we want, our top 6, top 8, whatever that is, 5. But we'll get them all. But we'll have a check sheet when we sit down and do the interviews that you can say, this is what your Chuck's concerns, they all on one paper, that you'll be able to kind of go through, and it'll be a standardized form, whereas before, I remember, it was kind of, we had our notepad and we took our own notes.
Yep.
So I kind of like that idea. I don't know how it would work until we do it, but it sounds like they're very well versed in doing this, I'm sure. I mean, they give a few references in their letter too.
As a municipal association, they should be well versed.
I agree.
Yeah. Just like ERA.
Yeah.
Never thought of that.
Do you need a motion? I make a motion that we use Maine Municipal Association to help conduct the search for Boothbay's new town manager.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor? Should we try to meet with them prior, sometime before our next meeting? Because they're gonna wanna meet with us before they put together any ad or anything. So, I mean,
I'll
What do
have Dave Barrett contact you and work out the details.
but would you guys be opposed to meeting sometime between now and our next meeting on an off night?
I don't care.
Should be next week.
Right, probably. I just think, I don't know, thinking back in my head how, we're in January. Ideally, it would be nice, even if they're not in place, but hired, to have them here. I realize we're not gonna have a traditional town meeting if we go with what the townspeople wanted, but it would be nice to kinda have them here shaking hands and greeting people the day of voting, which would be the 1st of May. And I don't think that that's an unrealistic, you're more versed in this, but we're looking at a 3.5-month timeline.
The key determinant on how fast you can do a hiring process is the availability of applicants and the commitment of the board.
Right.
If the board is committed to meeting on an accelerated timeline, you'll get it done fast.
When we hired Jim, I think it was 4 months from start to finish.
Right. But even, like I say, so we're looking at February, March, April, May, we're looking at about 3.5 months, roughly, before town meeting. And it would just be nice to have them, even if they're not in the seat. You're probably not gonna get them in the seat by then, but even if they were able to come down and greet the people. It's kind of an aggressive timeline, but I think it would be the best time. That's just my personal opinion. Okay, so I'll get hold of them, or have them when they call me, and we'll try to set something up.
I've got to be up there tomorrow. I'll talk to Dave Barrett and have him give you a call. One last thing while we're on this topic, we dusted off an old memo from Sally to the board and the manager last time we changed out managers. And it really is going to be something that is going to happen between me, Dan, and whoever the new manager is. But I wanted to bring this up to you guys, is that tax law, and as the tax collector, you're personally liable for the collection of taxes. So I'm liable for these taxes outstanding until you hire somebody. And we just want to make sure that that's understood amongst the board, that I'm perfectly okay with that. We put together a really strong tax collection method. But that I'm still a part of here until you hire them and we do the recommitment of taxes.
Is it, even though we have an interim town man, because technically we just hired Dan.
You don't want to commit them
Your
twice.
town manager isn't your tax collector. You're appointing an interim town manager, but you have a deputy tax collector,
okay.
treasurer to handle all that.
Okay.
Right. So, the only time that would be an issue is if we didn't have somebody to take the responsibility of tax collector in like a year. And then I'm going to be asking you, well, appoint somebody
Right.
so that I can get it off my shoulders. It was a little more complicated when I got here because we had some really old tax collections that we were carrying, but we've cleaned the books so much that it's not a big deal.
Next up is the reports for mid-year financial report.
Yes. So in your packets is a mid-year financial report. Hopefully you've had a time to look at it. I know I sprung it on you at the last minute, and I apologize. My wife's been dealing with a kidney stone, so it's really been eating up my time. Yeah, but essentially the bottom line is that the bottom line is good. I kind of put a little bit of tidbit information into you there, but the big numbers are essentially revenue collection is about 58%, and expenditures is right now at, I'm sorry, I lost track of it. Should have highlighted so I could pick it up. 58%. Now the reason why you're not at 50% at the mid-year part is because like things like your county tax goes out in one lump payment. Your construction costs are all in the summer. But if you break it down into the finer details, you can see that most departments are right at 50% or less. And that when you do the 2-year comparison, which I did the 13-14 comparison, that everything tracks relatively well. And like I said with the first quarter and the mid-year last year, is the fact that we can do very simple reports like this is a testament to the restructuring of the financial system that we did. We finally get to reap some of the rewards, that it's as simple as printing out, and you know exactly where you are year to year. So that's the financial report. Any questions in that regard?
I imagine Public Works must be looking pretty good. I mean, we've actually had a relatively mild winter versus last year.
It's not bad, but like we said last year, we don't count those chickens until they hatch.
I was gonna say, Steve, you just mentioned
Yeah.
that, we're supposed to be getting more tomorrow and more possibly Sunday.
And it's only mid-January.
Compared to last December and November we had though. Okay, next up, we'll move to old business.
I have more under reports. I
I'm
just
sorry.
wanted to see if there was anything else on financial report. Next is the under reports, and I threw this into your, I put it under your memo, but it's not actually under the agenda, is that Steve and I met with the CSD and the town of Boothbay Harbor about the charter. We discussed a lot of the parameters of the charter that just need to be addressed. And then I got an email yesterday, I think it was yesterday, from Eileen saying what the costs were going to be for the legal expense to address the charter. So from Dick Spencer, which is the attorney for the CSD, says that the cost will be about $7,500 to address the charter. But he says that this also doesn't include the discussion of cost share. And I can tell you that from my perspective, the entire discussion about the charter was amicable on every single topic until we got to cost share. And that's essentially going to be the big elephant in the room, is that the cost share structure is not written in at an advantage to Boothbay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Thinking, I mean, we brought that up about capping. Right now, any borrowing from the school system is capped at 60/40. Most that any town will pay is 60%, which is what we're at 40%. But education funding is whatever it is, and we're at 68/32. When you talk about that, and they're talking about getting a capital improvement plan, right now they're only allowed to put aside 12.5 for like new buses.
Right.
My question to you is this: if we went along with the changes that they're recommending in the charter, which I think make perfect sense, we would be paying 68% of their capital improvement plan.
Correct.
But if we said no to that, and then we said borrow the money for school buses, correct me if I'm wrong, but then we're paying 60%.
No.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
The 60/40 is only for construction and stuff, if you do construction at the school.
No, it's for any debt.
It's for any debt.
Right,
So if you borrowed money for any expense, we pay 60% of that.
yeah.
If it's within the body of the budget, we pay whatever the.
So a school bus
Yeah.
would fall into that, and if that's the case,
Yeah, and so the critical component here is that the student population is in Boothbay and trending drastically even further.
Yeah.
So that eventually, we talked about when is the breaking point for the town of Boothbay? When do we get to the point where the people look at how much they pay in taxes for the education system and say, $6 million, we can tuition out and do cheaper and get a better education. And now I'm saying that from a layman. I'm not saying that there is a better education in the Boothbay school system. But when do we get to that breaking point? And that ideally, addressing that situation now, while you're talking about the charter, is important.
When I brought that point up, I mean, it was kind of, we hit so to speak, a stone wall.
The trouble is, that's gotta be voted by both towns, all right?
Yes.
It
But-
depends.
But,
So essentially, this is a special and private law. If you're gonna change a special and private law, it's an act of the legislature. So it's who writes the law, and essentially, a lot of times, they put in, after this law is voted, it triggers a local vote. And so it depends, is the answer.
So what came out of that meeting was, I mean, I think it would be a very good idea for the Boothbay Selectmen and the Boothbay Harbor Selectmen to sit down and have this discussion, because, I mean, the reality of it is, it has nothing to do with the school board. It has nothing to do with the CSD board. That charter is an agreement between the two towns
Towns, right.
that the school boards have to work by.
Right.
Yeah, that's all trustees' responsibility.
No, actually, the charter is an agreement between the two
No, I know,
towns.
but trustees is one that handles it, not the school.
Well, maybe, but I don't, but my point is, we should meet as two select boards to see if we can come up with an agreement for funding. Because, if we can't, is it in our best interest to move forward? And I don't know that answer. I mean, I was all for it. I think that it's a great idea. But when Jim brought up at our last meeting, with the CSD about, you know, the capital, that's one of them things you don't think of, but it's the truth. Right now, if they borrow, we're paying 60%. If we allow them to have a capital improvement plan, we're gonna pay 68. Why would we do that? Why would that be a financial,
No, capital improvement is still 60/40. I mean, no matter what you, I mean, you can't go like the ball field.
That's not the- yeah, but that's not the way it's-
Ball field, all that stuff is still, that stays, the only thing that can go up is what your cost of education.
I think you're wrong.
No, I sit on that committee for a long time, so.
The way I've read it,
Yeah.
the charter that we had in front of us,
Yeah.
unless it's changed since you've been on there,
Well,
I'm sorry, but you're wrong.
there has been a few changes. I don't know if there's ever
Right.
been in there or not.
We had the most up-to-date charter.
They did.
And I believe that if, the way, I mean, Jim brought up a good point, it was something that I never thought of until after I walked away from that meeting, and, I mean, that brings up a very interesting point. It could cost us, potentially, a lot of more money than if they left it status quo.
See, I know we put the addition on that school, so that was 60/40.
Right.
See, in the high school, when we did the
But,
high school stuff.
that being said, if they put money aside for capital improvement, say they put $100,000 a year, and they get $1 million in there, and they decide to renovate the high school, put that addition on.
They didn't borrow any
Who
money.
paid, right, who paid 68% of that? But if they borrowed the money, how would that go? 60/40.
60/40.
So we just paid, on every $100,000, we're gonna pay $8,000 more this year. And then if it goes up. So, I mean, I just think we need to have the discussion, and, I mean, I'm not saying that it should be 60/40 now or anything like that, but I think we have to have a discussion. At some point, there needs to be a cap. What that number is
What
something that
percent
you,
is, yeah.
Well, see, that all was written way back in 1954, so we should adjust that with the state. I think the state would like to hold that, wouldn't they?
Special and private laws for school systems is unique. Yes,
But when
not most of them don't have it.
Yeah, no,
but think about it, when they did that back in 1954,
yeah.
they had on their brain building a school system. I mean, that's obvious, to build a school. So, and they did not want to, at the time, I mean, I can't speak for them what they were thinking, but I can assume that they did not want to burden one town, which at the time was Boothbay Harbor, with more than 60% of that debt. So that's why they capped it at 60/40. Made perfect sense.
Oh, yeah, so, I mean, because when they first started, they was paying more.
And let's face it, education back then was peanuts
Oh, yeah, I
to
know.
educate
Yeah,
kids.
I know, that's why I say we should.
So,
look
I mean,
into
and
it.
education cost has gone outrageous, so I don't think that it's unreasonable for us to ask for a cap.
Right.
even if you say it's 70-30. So I think that we ought to have a meeting between the two select boards and see if we can come to some sort of an agreement.
No, I would agree.
So, everyone okay with that? I think that,
just count the students.
that's the way they do it now. It goes by student
That's where the
population.
6832 comes
Yeah,
from.
so in Boothbay, if it happens, if the numbers work out, and Boothbay happens to have, 69% of the students, and Boothbay Harbor has 31, then that's.
That's what, it's right now 68-32. But what my point being is, at some point, there needs to be a cap. Whether it be 70-30, 75-25, I don't know what that number is. But at some point, we're paying,
We'll always stay 60/40, I mean, that's only for construction.
no,
That's
no,
it.
I am talking,
The non-borrowed.
school funding. It's right now 68-32. And at some, I believe, unless I'm the only one that's thinking this, if I am,
It
tell me
changes-
so.
It changes every year with the student count.
Absolutely. And I just think there needs to be a cap that it will not exceed 70%, 70-30, or whatever.
Boothbay has 99% of the students.
And it would stay at whatever you set that cap as.
But why would it be fair to have Boothbay, and I'm not saying it is.
Right.
I'm just curious, if Boothbay had 99% of the students, or Boothbay Harbor had 99% of the students, it's basically their school, why wouldn't they be expected to pay 99% of the expenses?
Because I think at that point, it would be cheaper to tuition them out. Think about it, right now, it's what, close to a $9 million budget. If you're gonna pay 80% of that,
But there's nothing in this charter that says that at some point, one of the other entities doesn't become disgusted enough to say, or doesn't become feasible to pay that way anymore, it just says we're pulling out.
right, there's nothing in the charter, right?
So if that number comes up, then you just,
Yeah, but you don't wanna get to that point. Right now, it would make sense to have a mutually agreeable that we're not gonna put a financial hardship onto a fellow town, no more than this. Because, let's face it, the two towns, whether, we know it won't be 1%, but say it goes 90-10%, just, would it be, if the town of Boothbay all of a sudden pulled out, what is Boothbay Harbor gonna do with their 10% in two school buildings? Are they gonna pay all that overhead? It makes financial sense for both towns to work together, absolutely. It did down in the 50s, and it still does now.
so a percentage based on students up to.
Right.
The state law allows you to apportion school costs between a district like that between the total value of the towns, the student population, or any mixture of those two. And really, it's kind of an anomaly to see a school district use student population because of the bricks and mortar concept that you need to pay for the buildings. It's not always linked to the students there. And then truthfully, students is a representation of residents and people that live there, and that we've agreed as a society that businesses and have a responsibility to the education system through taxation as well. So it's not a good measuring mechanism.
We have all the residentials, and they have a lot of the commercial.
And we have all
The
the,
trend is all the students are coming out here.
Right.
and we have all the property left.
The
So it is
demonstration I
gonna
made
get
at the
worse.
meeting that we had was in the 10 years prior to me getting here, our valuation was growing at about 12% a year on average. And our school costs were growing at 3%. But there's no problem with that mechanism because value is growing much faster than the budget. In the 4 years that I've been here, value has been stagnant because of the economy, but the school budget still increases at 3%. It starts to become a taxation problem.
So, does everyone agree that we should meet with
Yes.
them? Am I wrong at chasing a cap?
I don't think you're wrong in chasing a cap, no.
No, I think we should meet with the,
If you watch the tape from Boothbay, the Harvard's meeting, they got an issue with that.
Oh, I'm sure. I haven't watched it, but I'm sure.
They're
I gathered that,
very vocal and transparent on that.
who, Denise?
Denise.
Yeah, she was at the meeting, and she was.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, and don't get me wrong, sitting in our seat, you can see why we'd want it. Sitting in their seat, you can see why they'd oppose it. There needs to be a happy medium.
They're compromised.
Right.
Well, there's a certain value, as you say, that a school provides to a community. even
Absolutely.
If they don't have resident, or students there. The building's
It's a
there for
service
other
and
public
buildings
use,
and
for
equipment,
The
yeah.
facilities, the tennis courts.
Well, again, it's kind of funny you went there, because I was gonna say, one of the things they're selling it on is the tennis courts are able to be used by residents of Boothbay and Boothbay Harbor in the summer months when there's nobody, when the students aren't there in the school. Well, they get to reap the reward, but they don't have to pay their share. And I'm not saying we shouldn't get the bulk of the share, of course, we should get the bulk of the share, but I don't think to a point, to a reasonable point.
Maybe that number is 80/20, I don't know that answer, but there just needs to be a fail-safe mechanism in no matter what, you're guaranteeing that you're not gonna pay more than this. I mean, just like they did back in the 50s.
At
With-
some point, it comes, you gotta assign a value to having a school in their town.
Absolutely.
Right.
And we're not going into it being unreasonable, I didn't think I was at our meeting, I just broached the subject. So,
And I don't blame Boothbay Harbor for resisting.
Right.
You know, if it's currently constructed that the
Yeah.
town of Boothbay pays 70%, that sounds very acceptable from the Boothbay Harbor perspective. One other thing that I wanted to report, if we're done on that topic, is that I put in your packets the memo from Jeff Herman in review of Governor LePage's proposed budget. The summary is very long of that, but I think it's like a 700-page budget as well. But I wanted to make sure that the selectmen were apprised of essentially what that budget means to municipalities, because there's going to be a pretty long, multi-month conversation about what this means. And the largest thing that I would point out is the elimination of municipal revenue share and replaced with the 50% taxation of tax-exempt properties. That has a huge impact on the town of Boothbay. One that I haven't measured yet, but I can tell you that it's opening up a conversation about the fact that just because properties or businesses are nonprofits does not mean that they don't have a drain on municipal resources. And it's going to be a really interesting conversation over the next few months, one that you guys should pay attention to.
in theory, Jim, taking all the politics out of it, and just say, if that happened tomorrow, I would think that from the municipal government side of things, I think that a town like the town of Boothbay would make out better.
I
Because we get very little
Yeah.
revenue sharing, and we have a lot of nonprofits. I mean, that could potentially be huge.
The hardest part for me to do is tell you what the swing would be there, because we don't do a great job of assessing numbers on exempt properties. It's a fool's errand. Why would we put an appropriate tax dollar on something that you can't tax?
Right.
So, it would be a chore that we look forward to, is putting a good tax dollar on these things that are exempt. Because they do use municipal services. They use the dump, they use the fire department, they use the ambulance. And so it's a great conversation starter.
I'm sure a place like a city of Portland, it would hurt them probably more than it would help them, because they get huge amounts of revenue sharing.
See, I disagree. I think the service center cities, this actually solves an issue. Where is there a higher concentration of tax exempt properties when you think of hospitals?
Oh, yeah.
And when you think of colleges?
Churches.
Schools.
Churches are still exempt based on the governor's proposed budget. But when you think of those things, there's high-value properties there that still use municipal services. And when they don't pay their taxes, essentially that residential homeowner, that business owner that is not tax exempt pays their share.
Being interesting to watch.
Oh, yeah.
It's intriguing.
That's all I have.
Any more questions or comments? So we'll move on to old business now. We'll review committee applicants. So we have mostly, we have what, two? Three. We have three for the Joint Economic Development Committee. We probably should table them until we meet with Boothbay Harbor again, wasn't that the plan?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move on to the, community field.
You should have more for Joint Economic Development Committee. So I have Fran McBurney.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Oh, I'm sorry, they were double-sided.
Oh, okay. Andy Hamlet, Anya Heil,
Steve Malcolm.
Scott Riddle, Lynn Mitchell, Steve Malcolm, and Abby Levin.
No, I only have, oh, yes, okay, sorry.
I think there's at least 4 good ones in there.
Yep, I think so.
You're gonna have to tell a good committee a good committee person interested in the topic, thanks but no thanks. And that's a nice option to have.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people right now that's interested in the field committee. Last meeting, we voted, we chose to table it until the first of the year. I personally would like to be on that. I haven't filled out one of these forms, but I would
Request
like to be
denied.
on that committee as well.
You didn't fill a form out, you don't get on
Oh,
it.
that's true.
Think you get favoritism?
Our admin code doesn't say that the chairman's ex officio of all committees.
No.
It does in most bylaws, that's why I asked that question. I mean, like the ambulance service, the bylaws say that, so.
I'd recommend you appoint everybody that applied.
Yeah.
I think so too. I think there's actually a good variety of people on there.
It is something you wanted the community to show interest in, they have. You know, if it becomes a bit of a chore to have a big committee, so what?
Well, there's only, like I said, there's only 7 now, and I mean, I think honestly, we could get a few more than that.
Once they get started.
Right.
Yeah, but you just made me realize my volume's on. I can get obnoxious.
I mean, does anybody else have a preference on being on there as well? Any other selectmen?
My only thought is I saw that there was one applicant who applied for both.
Andy?
Yes.
Yep.
Is there a preference as to which one he'd prefer?
I don't know.
Does he really want to be on both?
He came in my office and asked for both of them, so yes, he does want to be on both. They seem to be both be up his alley, too.
And I don't see a reason to exclude him from both.
I mean, another,
And they're not really a conflict of interest with one another.
another person that has, I actually seeked him out, was Alan Crocker. He's the athletic director of the high school. I think he could bring a lot to the table. I mean, he said he'd be willing to serve. He just hasn't filled out one of these as well. But, so I think there's more potential people out there. I think Bill Mansfield, being as wrapped up in Little League and T-ball as he is, and I know he'd be willing, he just hasn't filled one of these out either. So I just think you want to get the community like that.
Alan's in Boothbay Harbor though, isn't
Who?
he? Alan?
No, I don't believe so. Does he live?
Red
Oh,
Red Hawk
oh,
Creek
I'm
Club.
sorry. So, okay, I thought he lived up on, okay, I apologize.
He's already
Cancel that.
volunteered to help, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would encourage him to come and participate, he just couldn't be actually committee member.
Or maybe Dan Welch. He lives Pension Ridge, so maybe he'd be willing to. I just think someone from that area
I
of
think Alan's
expertise
a
would be
great,
good.
great candidate, but I just
Yeah.
can't.
I thought he was a
consider-
Boothbay resident. I apologize.
I think Mike Wallace is
Who? Mike Wallace?
I mean, we're not, it's not like we're capping this thing at this point in time. It's not like we're gonna appoint
Right.
these 7 and that's
Right.
it. So if there's still other people that wanna,
I think we appoint these guys, we put together a meeting, kind of an informal meeting of here we are, where we going, and kind of go from there.
Well, if you're going to be on the committee, you can do that.
Yep, yeah, I have no problem with that, but, so,
still
go
think
ahead.
you need to fill out a form.
So I'll entertain a motion then to appoint Tom Nickerson, Dana Paolo, Palillo, okay. Andy Hamlet,
She can't even say
Peggy Prowess, Kevin Anthony, Kenneth Chances, and Louise Cowan.
And Steve Lewis?
Oh,
Steve
and myself,
Lewis.
sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, you can't vote for yourself.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I abstain.
Yep.
Next on the agenda is the Public Works pickup truck replacement, which we have in front of us.
Yep, so I put together a worksheet that shows you the prices that we got from the 4 dealerships. And then a recommendation from us would be to go with the O'Connor's Sierra 3500 heavy duty. It's not the lowest price, the Wiscasset Ford is the lowest price, but it's a matter of a couple $100, and our other truck is a GMC. So then we'd have, you know, like models in the fleet, and we've had success with that truck. But all the other prices are in front of you.
I don't like that.
Well, I was gonna say, other than the powertrain warranty, which is 40,000 miles less, and the maintenance, which there doesn't seem to be on the Wiscasset Ford, what's the difference besides that?
Yeah, there isn't really a lot of.
Maintenance is huge, though.
Mhm. And Wiscasset Ford didn't offer a maintenance package?
It wasn't, no, I called them and talked to them, and they didn't say there was any maintenance warranty, so.
The only thing that I mentioned this to Jim before the meeting, that I think with any of these vehicles that we choose, and I think the O'Connor's one makes the most sense because it's the same identical truck as what we already have. But, I'd like to, if we're gonna approve it, give Jim the leeway to negotiate a little extra money for an extended warranty, only because now this has the after treatment in it. And if something lets go in that after treatment system, it's gonna be very expensive. I can tell you from experience that one of them, DEF filters, they call them, I don't know the,
Diff.
I don't know, I know on our trucks it's separate. So I don't know, I just think that it's worth at least looking into and giving him the leeway just in case, because an extended warranty is a lot cheaper than big bucks.
Yeah, my truck, the EDF goes to 100,000.
Just for fairness for future bids, if we allow Jim to do that with the one that we're going to give the bid to, how is that fair to the other 3?
Well, we didn't ask for it from any of them. So you would be doing it with any of the other 3, asking for an extended, you know what I mean? So, I don't know if it's, what I'm getting at is if it's cheap enough, I think it makes sense for the town to buy it, that's all.
That maintenance, that includes oil changes and rotating tires and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you take that, that's changing oil and all that stuff's quite.
On
add
a
up
diesel
quite a bit.
especially.
On a diesel, add up quite a bit. I know my car is 56, something like that, just to do it. I don't, mine runs out now, but from now on, that's where I'll have to pay money, O'Connor's, and I've had good service with it, yeah.
Wiscasset Ford doesn't offer free oil changes anymore, do they?
They do if you're going to extend a warranty, not on a diesel though. But diesel oil changes are $100, so if that.
Right.
If the price from O'Connor's includes oil changes to 100,000 miles.
24,000.
2 years, 24,000.
Yeah.
2 years of service.
4 oil changes, that's $400. So, do it every 6,000 now, so that really would then end up actually being cheaper than Wiscasset Ford
Mhm.
if you're paying for your oil changes there, so.
I think it makes sense to go with the GMC.
Call them and see, I bet you that TDF is covered 100.
Yeah, but after 2 years, after we do our own anyway, but.
Yeah.
I do have to say, I'm surprised to see the difference between the Silverado and the Sierra.
I know.
Considering they're both the same truck.
But you know what? Traditionally, correct me if I'm wrong here, you're a car guy. Traditionally, GMC's been more money than Chevy.
Right.
But yet they're $4,000 cheaper than a Chevy,
Wow.
which is unusual.
Somebody bumped their head there, it shouldn't be that.
Well, don't get me wrong, I think the Ford price is outstanding. They gave us a
Absolutely.
great price.
Fords are more money than GM. And they may have a heavier municipal incentive in this area to get it back down. Apples for apples, the Ford trucks are more expensive than, they always were, more expensive than the GMs.
The only difference is $900
Yeah,
as far as
Yeah.
price.
take more of your scale on land. The Chevy's way miles. I think you're better off.
Well, maybe not, now you have the aluminum frame.
That's only on the 150.
Right, no, but I'm just, right,
That's why they did it?
yeah.
That's aluminum frame, it's still a steel frame, it's aluminum body.
Oh, okay.
It's the body that's, yeah.
It sounds like we're happy with O'Connor's.
They haven't taken anything to O'Connor's.
How many miles you put on the other one now?
The other truck goes to
How many
Goodwin's.
miles on that one?
No, I mean as far as this bid.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to O'Connor's, right?
What kind of service is good?
Yeah. They're great to deal with.
Really?
Boy, you got 100,000 miles.
See, I deal on the commercial side of
Transmission
it,
goes through
and I would take a broken wheelbarrow to them.
You know what I mean?
One bad experience?
No, a lot. I mean, we used to have a Western Star,
Huh.
and that's what they sell, but that's the commercial side of it.
Yeah.
And, lip, I wouldn't buy another Western Star.
Years ago, that's where we took our warranty to the dealership, and they were great.
And Douglas said that he's had good luck with them, but that's a whole different side of it too.
Yeah, we have stuff with them.
That truck be going to the same place they do
Somebody
mine.
wanna make a motion
Are we gonna give them the leeway or no?
for the extended warranty?
Yeah.
I'd say yes.
I think it makes sense.
Keep it in mind for the next time.
Right, I agree.
Which one you going with?
O'Connor's,
Connor.
do you wanna make the motion?
Yeah, make a motion to award the bid to O'Connor's, give them the leeway to negotiate an extended warranty for the price of $35,395,
Plus the cost of the warranty.
plus the cost of the warranty.
Reasonable. I mean, if it's too expensive, then, I mean, you know.
Second.
Motion been made and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? There's a vote.
Is that it?
Warranty was 100,000, didn't it? Do 5 or 100 on the diesel.
Ford, the general warranty was 3 years, 36,000 miles. The powertrain was 5 years, 60,000 miles.
5 or 100. They made a mistake.
Yeah, I called and that's what I got over the phone.
Yeah, it's 5 or 100 for the diesel. So that makes sense, it was the same warranty, but they blew it.
Move on to new business, property foreclosures, Jim.
In your packets is the printout of the properties that went through for automatic foreclosure. The first one on the list, and I didn't put them on the one on the website, given a little bit of anonymity to the people that went through foreclosure, because a lot of times these people come through in the end. But the first one on the list is a known administrative headache that I don't recommend we go through foreclosure. It's a long story, and we talked about it last year. Essentially, the situation with that property will be fixed this year with the new tax maps. But the other two properties below it, account 1691 and 1065, I recommend that the selectmen put them out to bid. I also say that with a note that we've been in contact with the property owners and that I expect them to come through. But once the threat of sale is there, it's usually a good motivator. And this list is 1/3 the size it has been in years past because of that.
So you're only talking two.
Two properties, and very small, bless you, very small amounts. And I think that they will be taken care of before you actually get to a bid process.
That's good.
Yes. So you're looking for a motion to
Put them out to bid.
put them out to bid?
Yeah, to put these two properties out to bid.
So do it.
Seconded.
Motion been made and seconded.
That was a motion.
Any discussion, Jack?
I do, but I don't think it's something that we can discuss in the open.
You're not, by admin code, forced to work on this tonight. You have to put it out by bid by mid-March.
So why don't we table it? Can we have a brief executive session afterwards to discuss?
I'm comfortable with that.
An executive session wouldn't be permitted for,
To protect someone's,
the properties or the taxes against them are outstanding publicly. Yeah, it wouldn't be a permitted executive session.
okay.
That's, the executive session for like personnel protects the rights of that personnel.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't be.
Pull property out, we can always pull it back, correct?
Yep.
Okay. That'll give me a chance to ask you a question.
Okay. Or you could just table it and we could talk about it later and then we can bring it back up at the next meeting.
We've got a motion in a second. How do we
I mean,
do
we
that?
can just, actually, we can just,
Go through
doesn't
it.
a motion to table supersede a motion?
No,
Yeah.
you have to withdraw.
You have to
I
withdraw
have to
it.
withdraw it, so I will withdraw it.
Okay.
I'm not trying to gum up the
second
works.
it.
No, no,
I just have a
I
concern.
would rather have all of our, I agree, Chuck.
So for the record, Douglas withdraws his motion, you withdraw your second, is that?
Correct.
Okay.
So now we'll take a motion to table till the
All right,
next meeting.
I'll make a motion to table it.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. Do it correctly. Next is the budget deliberations. It's that time of year again.
So, in front of you in the table, on the table, and the press has a copy, are all of the outside funding requests. And this is up to the selectmen on how much you want to get done tonight. I can do as much or as little, but I think from what I've heard outside of the meeting is the impetus is to get the budget completed before I leave. So what I'll just do is I'll start going through the budget. You tell me how much detail you want to go, and I'll give explanations. If you want me to speed up, slow down, just let me know.
Has,
Are we looking at the outside organizations, or are we looking at,
We're gonna look at the budget. If you want, when we're done with this, we can flip through the outside organizations. Last year, what we did was we quickly went over who had submitted, and you said, we want more information, or it's not gonna make the warrant, or it was pretty deliberate, the action you took.
can you, for next meeting, could you put together just a quick spreadsheet of all the outside organizations and their amount requested? Like, we had that last year, had one sheet, and were they funded this last year? Yes or no? Because that makes our yes, no, a lot easier.
Yep.
Has everybody had a chance to look at the budget?
yeah, and if I remember right, it's fairly flatlined.
Right.
Yep. So the summary of the budget is,
I think just going over it, almost, for lack of a better term, generic, because it is pretty much flatline. I don't think we need to get too in-depth in it.
Can you bring it up?
yep. I'm gonna bring up the spreadsheet version of it, which may or may not have a lot of my notes. But it'll be easier for me if we make changes as we go. So essentially, the summary of the budget is here. It's a 1.64% increase in the budget, 31,000. And then I'm just gonna push off into the detail. So general government, that's not a very good screen, is it? And why did it do that? We'll go this way. Okay. So general government breaks down to different categories. Town meeting and elections, I've completely flatlined. The selectmen, I gave them 100% rate, I flatlined. The planning board category.
Which is it?
What's that?
Which is it? Which one?
It's flatlined. I reduced the planning board line. As you can see, the other payees, that's been a fund account that we've had for a little while. It hasn't had any activity, so I just reduced the amount. It looks like a large percentage, but it's just $1,000 less. Administration is where it gets a little more interested. a little more interesting. You can see overall administration is a 4.9% increase. The largest factors in that are a little bit of attrition in the salaries line. You can see that that's a slight increase, not quite as much, but that also there's an increase to health insurance. Health insurance has been increasing at a rate of about 8%. So what this is, it factors the first half year at 7%, and then the second half of the year at 8% increase. We're just expecting that there'll be an 8% increase in the halfway through the year.
Jim, when you say administration, is that front office?
That is the front office and the town manager.
Jim, insurance.
Yep.
If we hadn't made the changes that you recommended last year, the increase would have been much more than what we're looking at now, correct?
Yeah, we enjoyed the dramatic drop-off in the cost of insurance last year more than we enjoy it this year because, you know, so yeah, we've already saved a lot of money by that insurance change. I've made a small slight change to rent and lease. You know, it's a line that we don't use very often. We've been able to get better prices on copying machines and stuff like that. So really, administration is a 4.9% increase, but there's been a tremendous amount of savings impacted there. Most of it's salaries and health insurance. Code enforcement is a 3.8% increase. Most of that comes through salary and wage increases over time. Code enforcement is a heavy personnel type category. So the total general government is a 3.9% increase with a 5-year average of about a 0.4% increase. So we've been really inventive to find savings in here over the last few years, and you know, eventually you have to pay the piper. I'm going to continue on. Public safety, we can talk about when we want to bring in the harbor master and the fire chief. Ideally, with me leaving, maybe next meeting would be good. We bring them in here, we have a short conversation. But they're on board with my budget, and I can explain to you what we're going to do. Salaries, we've factored in the fire department, a $1 raise for the firefighters. We discussed this in years past. This is where we're honoring that. And so it was just a calculation. What I took was what I factored to be a $1 raise in there. There really isn't very much change other than that in the fire department budget.
Jim, $1 an hour raise, what does that do for Chief Spofford?
Chief Spofford still gets paid an hourly rate at the same as a firefighter, but then he gets a stipend for being the chief as well. So it doesn't impact his stipend, it just impacts his hourly rate like everybody else.
My only concern is he does an awful lot for the, pardon the pun, for the peanuts he gets.
So I agree.
What is his stipend?
I have it in my spreadsheet.
And he's perfectly happy with that?
The chief would rather see the dollar raise go to all firefighters at this point. I mean, maybe we need to talk about that, but it's not something I've budgetarily prepared for this year. Any other questions on the fire department? So that ends up being a 5% increase on just that section of the public safety. Waters and navigation, I'm also asking for a $2,000 increase to the total stipends of all the harbor masters, so that would be spread out amongst the three. That's kind of taking care of the compensation a little bit better with them. When we restructured, we never really took care of their compensation. It ends up looking like a large compensation change because it's a small budget, so it ends up looking like 10%. It is 10%, but it's only a $2,000 increase to the stipend of 3 guys. Animal control, I did bump up a slight raise in animal control too. This is all subject to your approval, but I thought it was only fair while we were in that area. There hasn't been any increase in compensation in animal control in quite a few years. Fire protection remains flat. That's a calculation. The street lights, we've negotiated quite a cost savings. 1.5% doesn't look like a lot of cost savings, but when it comes to streetlights, you're not really in control of that. So we locked in a rate for the next 4 years, right before the increase to streetlights. And then emergency management is something we need to talk about right now. We're just leaving that flat. But essentially, that would have been paid out to Chief Spofford, who's acting as the EMA director this year. But honestly, Chief Spofford would like to bring Scott Campbell back in as the EMA director. And we need to find out how much that's going to cost as far as compensation. Any questions over that? That's a 1.7% total on public safety budget, and you can see over the 5-year average it's 2.3%. But that 2.3% is really inflated because in that is the fire protection that went up that huge amount that 1 year when there was a change.
What happened?
When they did a rate change for the water district, that really has a huge effect on fire hydrants. So within the last 5 years, we had that rate change. It doesn't change after that, so it balances out. So 2.3% over 5 years is good. It would be even.
Charges for water, fire?
Oh, yeah.
Had nothing to do with it.
$245,632.
Invented that, I
Nope.
$250,000, and you hope you never use it,
$250,000 to keep the water there.
just to have fire hydrants, yes.
I'll keep leaving hose up by the end of the road.
It's Dale's benefit package that really makes it.
But rates are PUC calculations, you know, we don't really get much control over them.
I've never managed a PUC, you keep hearing about it, I've never, how do they get put in that position, how do I get that job, how do they?
I think it's a whole bunch of water district managers that get together and make decisions.
Conquer somewhere.
Public Works budget. So within the body of the Public Works budget through attrition, there really isn't any total change in the Public Works budget, just a slight variation. It really is way less than 1%. The reason why that is that way is attrition. And you still have the cumulative effect of increases in healthcare and increases in salary, but because you've lost a higher paid employee, that balances out. So don't expect that to last many years. It's it's something that you get the pleasure of having this year. Snow removal is flat budgeted. You know, you could be reactionary and say last year we overdrew, so we'll bump it up, but I think that all comes out in the wash in the end. So we flat funded it. Road improvements, although this is something I'd like to budget more, I don't know how to fund it, so we just go with a flat budget. Ideally, we would do more. Whoa, what happened there? That's a copy machine. So it ends up being a negative 0.3% increase, negative 0.3%, it's a 0.3% decrease this year, 1.3% increase over the last 5 years. I can read that. Most people are probably having a hard time with it. So capital improvements budget is flat funded. It's been flat funded since we've been here. Essentially what we're asking for is $140,000 to fund the fund. So when you add that $140,000 in with the fund balance of $276,000, it gives you a total capital improvement fund of $416,102, which starts to make sense of why we don't ask for an increase in this, is that we've taken all the expenses over a foreseeable amount of time, and we just fund what will, we just ask for an appropriation that will keep the fund in balance. The expenditures that we're requesting this year would be half of the equalization project. The East Boothbay tanker, which this is the cost of a used tanker. And we've had the discussion with the fire chief that essentially if we can't find a tanker that fits within that time frame, we'll carry the money over into next year and ask for more. But if it's under $100,000, we'd like to be able to purchase it. $40,000 to replace some fire department SCBA's. that cost will replace, I think, 25% of the SCBA's. And there is the possibility that we could get some grant fund in there, and we'd use that as seed money. Schedule for replacement is the Public Works lawn tractor. Every 4 years, we do some clerk book restoration. So we save $1,000 every year, and then we expend $4,000 every 4 years. And then $30,000 for the planning fund, which essentially would be used to hire a consultant to come in and implement the comprehensive plan with the planning board. Any questions on capital improvement? That's probably the most complex part of the budget. And this is just to show you, that was the FY16 expenditure plan, but I put in here what would be essentially the next few years of capital expenses. 17 ends up being the other half of the reval project. 18 is a dump truck and another lawn tractor. There's no expenditures in 19. So what I'm just trying to show you is that there's a plan in place, one that anybody can follow if you just stay the course. Oh, one note on that though is, and you see the note in the bottom right hand corner there, is that we do have an issue when we get to about 2020 where we kind of run out of money based on the $140,000 that we put into there every year. It also happens to be the same time that the undesignated fund is replenished. So it would be an opportunity for the board at that time to say, let's bleed some money into the capital improvement plan. So where there's a hole in the plan, there's a backup plan. But obviously, nobody's committed to making those decisions until 2020.
Just curious, Jim, up on 2018, the Public Works lawn tractor,
Yeah.
we're gonna spend $6,000 for that one, but the one that we're gonna replace this year, we're gonna spend $18,000? What's the difference of the two?
One's a tiny little
One's a
lawnmower,
regular-
and one's a great
regular
big
one.
huge tractor.
And that 18,000 is that one that they also have the
The
when they do
sickle
the sickle
bar.
bar and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a farm tractor.
It's-
Sorta, yes, yeah,
It's a
Kinda.
difference between a lawnmower and a tractor.
right.
Yeah, and we're looking at ones that even have
Sure.
I got you.
more diverse abilities. Every time we buy one of those, we're like, hey, what else can you do for us? So yeah, that's the big one, is the $18,000 one. The other one's just a lawn tractor, and one of the
Those little zero turns.
zero turns. That's what I was
Zero
looking
turn
for.
mower.
They're not cheap.
Yeah, they're about $6,000.
Yeah.
The general assistance budget is, I'm actually asking for a reduction, a 20% reduction. It's not because we have less GA or we're gonna serve less people. It's essentially, we've never actually spent the $10,000 in the budget. So I'm just sharpening the pencil a little bit. Why appropriate money that we're not gonna use? So remember, this is 50% of the expense of GA because the state gives us the other 50%, so it really is a $16,000 budget. The most we've ever expended was $16,000 in the past 5 years. So I think it's an appropriate change.
Just curious, Jim, where we mentioned GA, a while back, we decided that the GA officer needed to require authentication that you belonged here. We haven't had any issues with that, have we?
No, nor did we really think that it was a big Boothbay issue. Yeah, most of the people that come in as GA applicants were able to get some kind of certification, and if not, I haven't heard of a case where we haven't actually, so.
Good.
The service account is a budget category that we created when I first got here to consolidate some expenses that we have in multi-departments. Essentially, we're talking about keeping the legal expense at the exact same funding level. $30,000 seems to be an appropriate amount. The service account 602 is like advertising, telephone, printing, postage, those types of things. That's a 3.6% increase, but really, it's just the cost of services. Buildings and grounds, I took down a little bit. it's just sharpening the pencil a little bit more. We're able to get, I think this is reflective of the fact that we're saving some money on some electrical costs. But essentially, it's a small reduction. The biggest thing that we're doing is we're adding in a section called Information and Technology, which we've been funding out of the capital improvement plan for the last couple of years, but now we're switching it over to the operating budget. It essentially will pay for the costs that we have contracted to the IT firm that we use.
Line 219, electrical, why aren't we saving more than that with everything that we did for solar?
We probably are. Truthfully, I didn't want to be too aggressive because we don't have a lot of history recorded on how much we're going to save. I'd like to see a year or two before we start sharpening that pencil even more. So it's a good observation. But once again, budget numbers are not meant to be accurate. They're meant to be as close as you can get.
Better to be conservative than aggressive.
Right. So yeah, and where we have sharpened our pencils in other places like GA, we err on the side of caution, but when we can sharpen the pencils, we do. Debt service, this is easy to budget, is that we have no further debt service. I see the big smile on Chuck's face. And this was just essentially, when we're talking about debt service, come on, get back there. I threw in that old memo about what we said with road improvements, that maybe someday we should start talking about borrowing the money to do a major road bond, and we can capture some economy of scale when it comes to expense on paving. And then the insurance budget is the last budget category. It is a 6.2% increase, which essentially I bumped up the property and casualty a little bit because the insurance market is a little bit unstable right now. So I just wanted to buffer the town in case we had an increase in our property and casualty. But essentially, that's a $3,000 increase on a budget line that is actually pretty small already. So in all, it's not that big of a deal, and over the 5-year term, it's been a very stable budget. You can see a 0.1% increase over 5 years.
Property and casualty, that comes through MMA.
Yep. Yeah. And
Pretty much in line with anything that's outside.
yeah, and so when MMA, this is really good information. MMA doesn't provide us insurance, and although we put it in a category, they provide us coverage. It's like a coverage pool. Which insulates us a little bit from these fluctuations in the insurance market, and provides you more appropriate coverage to a municipality. Like if you went to an insurance market, they're going to give you a price that's closest to somebody that does your same business, but who does our business, you know? So, yeah, it's great coverage, and it's protected us every time we've had a claim, like 100%.
And a lot of times, with MMA, you get a refund check.
Right.
It's a risk pool, so if other towns that's in your pool don't have claims and you don't have claims, you get a rebate.
Yeah, and our experience modification is really, really good. We've been pretty safe over the last 5 years. So we usually see that, and then that just ends up discounting the whole thing. But we don't budget that, just in case you have a bad year. So that is the rest of the budget. It's really not that dynamic, and I did that on purpose, is I didn't want to put together a dynamic budget for the selectmen when we were going to talk about things like Clifford Park redevelopment and things of that nature. I wanted those to be the controversial topics and take the heat off the budget.
I think you did a good job with the budget, keeping it as flat-lined as you did and sharpening your pencil where you felt you could.
I mean, do you see any need to bring the department heads in at all?
Based on that,
I don't. I mean, the only thing I see of wanting to meet with anybody is maybe a few of them organizations, of the outside organizations, so to speak. But
I'll be honest, you'll be hard-pressed to convince me to fund anybody that we haven't
I
been
agree.
historically funding.
I agree. But, I mean, I can't see what possible insight, Dicky,
Or Pete.
or Pete, I mean, or Mike. I mean, them budgets are pretty straightforward, self-explanatory. If there was a huge increase that, in there for something, it'd be a different story. but
Somebody
there
had to
isn't.
come in here and try to sell us something,
Right.
that'd be one thing,
Well, the thing
but
is,
there's nothing to sell.
what affects us the most isn't that budget, it's the outside budget.
Absolutely.
Always is.
The school and the county.
Transfer station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I do have a-
I had to take the heat off the water district for a minute.
I do have a,
I will say that.
And the
transfer
hydrants?
budget is
The hydrants,
The
yeah.
overall budget.
Quarter of a million for the
transfer
hydrants.
station's up 1.99.
well, the revenue side, municipal revenue is 2.95. But that leads me into a question I have. The formula for the refuse district uses taxable sales, which Boothbay was up $2 million over last year, which is substantial. The town of Boothbay in total taxable sales. Why? What's
Yeah, I was
the,
gonna ask the same question.
The only thing I can say is that we've been working pretty hard to develop our economy, you know.
oh, I agree, but it just, I mean, maybe we're starting to see some of that rewards, which leads me to my next question. The proposed property values for 2015. How can the town of Boothbay go up by, what was it, 200 million? Or 20, no, I'm sorry, 20 million in property value, and all the surrounding towns dropped significantly?
Yeah, well, I don't know, those numbers come from the state. So I don't have an answer for you, but I can tell you that our plan, since I've been here, has been to work on developing some kind of economic rebound. And we haven't seen the hit as bad in our property values. So the idea was that when the economy comes around, Boothbay is gonna be well positioned. And I really think that that's within a couple of years.
I mean, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, like Boothbay Harbors, without having them numbers right in front of me. I think last year was 750, and this year it's like 715. Southport, same way. Edgecombe, same way. Boothbay, up. Every year in the last, I mean, I ask you the same question every year because we keep going up, even in the down economy, we're going up compared to all the surrounding towns, and I just can't help but, we sheltered a huge portion of
Of an increase.
an increase, but we're still going up.
Well, remember what the assessor told you at the last meeting we had with him, is that there really is property value growth in Boothbay. It's just that we've made a lot of abatements because of issues with our property assessment formula. So Boothbay's growing and about to just blow up grow, especially once the economy rebounds.
It's just interesting to sit and look at them numbers and to see every year we have grown compared to, I mean, when all your surrounding towns on each one of our borders are decreasing, we're increasing. That's,
I think economic activity is a fever and we want everybody to get it.
good job.
I just got a question. They're over there surveying the Battles Island Bridge. Has the state got a plan coming up on that, or what? Can you
Yes.
find out?
Yeah, there is a plan, it's in the work plan, to do some repairs on the bridge.
Or is it Just,
Yeah.
just repairs?
I don't think it's a full replacement, I think it is repairs.
Because I've never been on that surveying, so I just wondering what it was.
Yeah. It is in the DOT work plan.
Was it- Governor's plan was to repair or replace 47 bridges or something like that. I was watching on the news this morning. Maybe that's one of them.
So we'll open up to the next public comment.
Yeah, I do have a public comment. In an attempt, I spend an awful lot of time trying to pay attention to what goes on in these towns, in both towns and regions. And I want to talk about losing our town manager. And I want to better understand it, because I certainly have a bunch of people looking at me for an explanation. And I don't know all the answers. last 4 years, what we've accomplished, and I will list them out for TV land. Things, the budget looked outstanding, hence the mill rate was completely under control. We just talked about property values increasing because of the moves that we've made. We've got a state-of-the-art website, and I know that. Go on to other towns and look at websites. It's comical. We've got a state-of-the-art video system that was done on the cheap, money-wise, but certainly it didn't spare anything technologically wise. I think I'm going live right now, which is amazing, okay? The TIF, that went through. My God, I mean, what we've done, accomplished, that stuff that we put into there. Then we look at what we got hanging. We got the sidewalk thing that's going on. We have joint economic development between the two towns going on. We've got Clifford Park potential going on. We've got the golf course, and what's going on there, and the need to bridle that and to understand that, because that could, I think it's gonna go great, but if that's not paid attention to, that can get out of control, and get away from us. And I guess, unless there's an executive session type skeleton in a closet somewhere, I, and plenty of people that have talked to me, would like to know, was there any attempt made to try to retain his Jim's services? To see what we could do? I mean, maybe he came back and said he had to match rock. I don't know, but I gotta know. Or I'd like to know. I don't know if I have the right to know, but what went on? What happened? I mean, last meeting I was here, things were going great. We're charging full speed ahead, and now all of a sudden, we're tripped up. As far as I'm concerned, we're tripped up. And we can survive it. I mean, it's not like in everything. You're not a god. I mean, you can be replaced. I can't think of a worse time to try to do it in the middle of all this. And I don't know, again, what attempts, if any, were made. Maybe that's not how municipal government works. I don't know. I know that when I had an employee, a key employee, there were certain negotiations that went on, trying to figure out what the problem was, trying to understand each other, to see if there was a common ground we could come to. And I guess I'll let you guys talk if you can, or if you want to, and try to explain to me what happened, and not what we're gonna do. I know what we're gonna do, and it is water over the dam. But as I try to get a handle on these towns and municipal government and how things work, and try to be part of the solution and not just part of the problem, and not just up here coming to meetings on something that only interests me or the people that I talk to. But as I wade my way through this, I've got to understand how this works, you guys, and I just don't. So I'll shut up, and you guys can say what you can say.
Well, my problem is I don't know what I can say. I have lots to say, but I can't say much of anything.
What I guess what we met one day last week. What day was it? Wednesday? Was it Wednesday of last week?
Thursday.
Thursday.
We met
Right.
last week.
We met Thursday in executive session. Obviously, we can't discuss what went on in an executive
Does that ever
session.
become public? Executive sessions ever become public?
No.
No.
I mean, the information in them?
No.
No?
Unfortunately, no.
Well, no,
And there was no decisions made from that meeting. I mean, it was just an executive session amongst the board. And other than that, I can't really, our hands are tied at
Well, can you
discussing
tell me,
that.
was there ever talk of trying to come to an
We
understanding?
entered that executive session discussing Jim's personnel, his job.
Mhm.
That's about as much as I think I'm allowed to say.
I mean, unfortunately, Frank, I can't tell
Not
you.
just me.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, I mean, an executive session is,
Can
Confidential.
anybody say whether attempts were made to try to renegotiate? Did we try? Or did we just say, here's a bus ticket?
I don't mind answering that. I mean, the executive session is to provide me privacy. And yeah, the discussion was talk of a renegotiated contract. I think it was a win-win type of scenario from my perspective to the town, but it just didn't come to fruition.
Would the details of that ever be revealed? On what the offer was, or who made it, and who voted which way, and, well, I guess you didn't vote. Was it-
Right, you can't vote.
No decision.
Yeah,
No.
Right. I know it's uncomfortable, you guys.
No,
It really isn't. I mean, if I could speak freely, I would speak freely. I just don't, I'm not gonna get myself into a legal.
I mean, it's serious
Right.
stuff. I mean, I have never felt so deflated. I know you guys put a lot of time into it, and you wouldn't be sitting there if you hadn't. And I really thought we all had an understanding. And a lot of people thought we all had an understanding. A lot of people were sitting back saying, hey, what you guys are doing is great, and let us know what we can do, and people were excited. And I'm not saying that people aren't excited anymore, but holy crap, I mean, there's a lot that needs to have attention paid to it, and data's great, and all that. I mean, I thought that Jim was hired to promote economic development, and certainly, just this conversation segued great into it. How come our property values are going up and everybody else's are going down? I mean, something's working here.
I agree.
And I would like to think that we made a heck of an attempt to try to negotiate to keep the status quo going. From a business standpoint, again, let's see where you guys are, but it all seems pretty simple to me. I'm just, the wind has been knocked right out of my sails. I mean, I'll come back from it. Hopefully we forget his name here soon, because things will be going so great. I'm being facetious. So I'm sorry I put you guys on the spot, but
No?
I'm gonna be digging. I wanna know what went on. And, I guess I don't really know how I'm gonna find out, but, I mean, I'd like to, everybody in the room and everybody talk about it, it's the 800-pound gorilla that we're talking about here, and nobody wants to talk about it, and,
Again, you gotta be very clear. It's not what we wanna talk about, it's what we're allowed to talk about.
okay,
There is a very distinct difference there.
okay. Well, I'm gonna keep sniffing.
Told you were on the wrong side of the gavel. Told you that before the meeting even started.
I gotta understand this, because I'm putting all scenarios through my head, and there's not, unless, it got a big offer from Rockland, and can you guys match this, and, we just don't have the money, okay, that, I understand that, okay, that's the point, where if we can't afford it, we can't afford it. And certainly, I equate it to baseball, Jim's moving up to the majors, nothing against Boothbay, but, compared to a city with AAA, and they never made a secret, that's what they always wanted to do, congratulations, I'm extremely proud of them, and you guys did a great job getting them. I hope you can get lightning in a bottle twice.
That's-
We need lightning, we need bold. If we wanna keep doing this economic development thing, we wanna get our property values down, back with the rest of the state, then we can, just not really care that much who we get, next, but, we need somebody loud and proud and bold, and we had them, as far as I'm concerned, we had them, and, we somehow let the prom queen get away. And I'm not happy about that at all. So I'm fearful of
Can I address Frank for a second? I just want to make sure a couple things are clear.
it. You can give me a hug?
Yeah, we'll hug later. No, the first thing is that I was recruited pretty heavily by Rockland. A credit to Rick Dackery and his job to recruit me. I was not looking to leave Boothbay. I'm pretty damn happy in Boothbay. So I just want to make that clear. And I never leveraged Rockland or the offer that Rockland made to Boothbay. I never put them in a position that said, you have to match, you have to do anything. I never did that. I just want to make that clear.
Is the behavior that I would expect of you. So, it doesn't surprise me, but thank you. Thank you for getting us where we're at. I'm just gonna dig my claws in and try to keep us here. And move forward.
I mean, the executive session was, like Dale said, to discuss what you want to share with the public. That is your prerogative as far as what you, so, I mean, later on, I'm saying, you know what I mean, if you want to share that, that's for your, whether you want to share it or not.
Well, the executive session that we had was to go over the proposal that I gave to the selectmen, which I have no issue with what I proposed was fair. I have no issue with anything. You can talk about what, don't feel like you have to protect my right from the executive session. I've always conducted myself above board and I think in a respectable way, so if it was completely public, I don't care. It's not up to me. It's up to what you want to say.
Uh-oh, he's saying you can talk about it.
But tonight isn't about me. It's, it's, in my resignation and Dan's appointment is not about me. That's about Boothbay.
Does anybody want to comment?
It sounds like you don't want to talk about it.
I'm asking. Yes, no?
Still thinking, I don't know. I'm not
You
sure.
want to loop back around and come back to it? He's gone.
Oh, I know that. I
I
trust me.
respect you guys. If you want to come back, I'm going to ask again. You know what?
Oh, I don't, yeah.
I want to know. I gotta learn from this. We have to learn from this.
Well, he came with a proposal, I thought was a decent proposal. We discussed it, and it kind of died in the room.
So apparently not everybody thought it was a decent proposal.
There you go.
If everybody had, then probably we wouldn't be sitting here.
As far as I'm gonna go with it.
Okay.
Sorry, Frank.
That's
I can only echo his sentiment. I mean, I think that he said it very well.
Yep.
Jim had support, but not full support.
okay. I'll get it.
So,
I'm not
no,
I'm not mad, I'm not threatening, I'm just very, very disappointed. And not in any way, I'm disappointed in the situation, because there's gonna be one side and the other than the truth, and I know, I'm all about compromise, but I have to understand these things, if I'm gonna stay involved, and
the reality of it is, if he had support and didn't have full support, if that was you sitting in that chair, giving us a proposal, and you did not have full support, would you pursue it, or would you go to bigger and better things?
well, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, because yeah, I've been in that position before. So you've got not full support. I mean, I don't know what the money factor. Then you got to start factoring other things in.
Right.
I guess if you've got one side that's coaching you with open arms into something that you always wanted to do, and then the other side, if you're willing to take the same money for that, but it's like, maybe it's 4-1 or 3-2 or whatever like that. Yeah, that might shove me into the arms of the other suitor. I mean, who wants to work someplace to put the effort in if they don't have, if you really don't want me, if you truly, and I guess I read that Rockland was a unanimous decision. So everybody in Rockland wanted them, and not everybody here wanted them. I guess I kind of understand. I guess what I'm going to be sniffing around for is exactly what that offer was. Find out so that I can understand.
And
Right.
Jim, I mean, I think Jim said he'd share that with you if you want to see
Yeah.
it, so. I mean, that's your privacy, not ours, so.
Okay.
Do appreciate your concern.
Well, it's never ending, never leaving.
Anything else?
Nothing from you, Mike?
You want to come up and see our real town house.
So, I will entertain a motion to sign the warrants upon review.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?